The inventory system, one of the utmost fundamental features of Minecraft. With it comes Minecraft's arguably most important limiting factor, inventory space. Each player is given a limit of 36 inventory slots that is designed to push the player to optimally manage their resources in order to survive. Although, there is one item in particular, known as the Shulker box, that allows for this limit to be surpassed by providing the player with an extra 27 slots of inventory space. This game-changing feature is a necessity for any endgame Minecrafter. However, since the creation of the Homies SMP, there has been no effective or efficient way to farm these boxes. But that all ends today. Today, my fellow Raider players, we will be building an insane Shulker Farm that will produce us over 250 Shulker boxes every single hour and allows for even crazier creations to come on the Homies SMP. Before we can begin constructing the farm, we need to form a plan. The design we'll be using today is by RaiderPlays, and it produces approximately 520 Shulker shells per hour, which is extremely efficient and an extremely effective farm. And to build this farm, we need to collect a ton of materials, including all of these items on screen, not to mention all the additional items we need to collect to build a surprise farm for later. And after constructing each farm, the hardest step of them all still remains, which is bringing a live Shulker all the way from the far out cities of the end, all the way back to the overworld and into our newly built farm. And trust me when I say, this last step will undoubtedly test the sheer will of me as a Minecraft player. The first hiccup I encountered when trying to gather the resources for our first farm was a lack of Shulker boxes to hold all the materials. But after borrowing Shulkers from several random locations on the server, I was finally able to start gathering the materials for our first farm. Now that we gathered everything, it's time to play a game of Guess That Farm! Now, based on the items in these two Shulker boxes, what kind of farm will we be building today? Will it be A, a Shulker farm? Will it be B, a creeper farm? Will it be C, a basalt farm? Or will it be D, a sand farm? Put your guesses down below in the comment section before the timer hits 0. And if you said Shulker Farm, you'd be wrong. The correct answer is actually a basalt farm. Now many of you right now are probably asking, Raider, I thought you were building a Shulker Farm in this video. And to that I say, you are correct, but this basalt farm will allow us to generate mass amounts of basalt blocks that will make it much easier to transport a Shulker all the way from the end to the overworld. Much, much easier. Building this basalt farm was a breeze. Using all the materials I gathered and following a tutorial by the one and only Mango, I was able to finish this farm in just under an hour. And after completing it, I decided to test it out for a little bit to see whether it truly produced the amount of basalt it claimed, and true to its word, after a short grinding session, I had 5 double chests nearly full of basalt. However, disaster struck when I decided to continue to AFK the farm and my precious netherite pickaxe, Miney Thing, was laid to waste. Gone, but never forgotten. However, after a quick 30-minute session of grinding, I was able to create a new netherite pick with all the same enchantments, fitly named Miney Thing 2.0, and now we can finally gather the materials for the farm you have all been waiting for. If you are enjoying this video, consider subscribing to the channel and joining the RaiderPlayers. We're trying to get to 600 subscribers by the end of the month, and it would really help me out. Plus, if we get to that 600 subscriber goal, I'm going to be releasing a super special video for all of you guys to enjoy. Thank you to all you fellow RaiderPlayers out there for being subscribed. Now let's get back to the collecting. Luckily, for most of the materials of the Shulker Farm, we already have ways of farming them. Mass amounts of glass were obtained from using both our sand duper and our super smelter, and all the obsidian for the portals was collected from our obsidian farm, conveniently located right next to the sand duper in the end. And our last major resource, iron, was supplied by our 12 villager iron farm near spawn. And now that we have all the materials we need, let's start building this behemoth of a farm. Many challenges arose while trying to build this farm in survival. For one, scaling the build was fairly annoying. As you can see, I constantly had to make dirt towers to get up and down the build. I also had to make sure the farm was built in a plains biome to make sure none of the snow golems within it melted and ruined the build. And the worst of all the problems came after the nether side of the farm, where I had to remove portions of my nether hub tunnels in order to fit the chunk loading system there. Not to mention the multiple technical issues with the nether portals not linking correctly to each other that I had to fix after the fact. But after jumping through multiple hoops, the building step of the farm is finally finished. However, our work is truly about to be cut out for us within this next step. Transporting a shulker from the end to the overworld is a complex conglomerate of processes. First, we need to build a massive railway from an end gateway to an end city. Next, we need to use a boat to pick up a shulker from a city. Then, push the boat into a minecart and send it through the railway, through the end fountain, to once again put it in a minecart, moving it into the completed Shulker Farm, where we can finally start raking in the profits. Now, if only it were that easy. I started out by collecting a shulker box filled with basalt from our new basalt generator and rails from our rail duper. Then, I made my way to the end gateway to locate a city, and after a bit of searching, I managed to find one close to the portal, so I immediately set out to building the railway. And after successfully connecting it to the gateway and creating another railway from the gateway to the end fountain, I was finally ready to begin the attempts. Or so I thought. The first few attempts were rough, to say the least. Endermen kept getting into the boats with the shulker, and half the time the shulker wouldn't even reach the gateway. And after some changes to the track and the gateway, the next few attempts were much smoother until they reached the gateway, and the minecarts continued to fall off the rails after going through the portal. I ended up figuring out that I needed to place rails on the exact point that I would be teleported to if I went through the gateway. And after making these adjustments, I returned to the city to finish the job. But after a nightmarish and horrible few attempts of constant failure at the end fountain, I had hit a major roadblock. All the shulkers in the city were gone. I had exhausted the entire supply of them, and now I was faced with two decisions. Leave the end and return to the overworld with an unfinished farm and multiple hours sacrificed, or find another end city and continue the fight to finish this farm for the good of all the homies, no matter how hard it gets. And clearly, this story doesn't end here. I immediately began locating a new end city and found one sometime later. Then, I enlisted the help of Battery, who suggested the idea of using splash potions to keep the shulker alive. And using his knowledge of potions and his full laboratory, he created 3 splash potions of regen and healing, as well as a potion of invisibility to stop the shulker's constant barrage of fire that had caused so many problems previously. Next, I used a strategy of slabbing the area around the end fountain and covering the posts in pistons to force the Shulker to teleport into the overworld. That will hopefully make this process much easier. And even with all the improvements, the process was still extremely challenging, and I wasn't able to get the Shulker into the overworld. That was until everything finally started to click. I had successfully stolen a Shulker from the in-city and sent it down the minecart track, and surprisingly, it entered the gateway and made it to the end fountain without a single issue. I broke the boat and the minecart holding the Shulker, and the moment I had finally been waiting for happened. The Shulker teleported through the fountain into the overworld. I rushed through the portal and put a minecart on the final track, sweeping the Shulker up the track to the farm. And finally, after days of work, the Shulker finally reached its final destination, and our goal had finally been reached. After over 50 hours of work and weeks worth of planning, all of our hard work has finally paid off, and the Shulker Farm is finally finished. We were pushed to the breaking point, but we have finally arrived at our goal. No longer will the homies be held back by the limits of our inventory space. We can finally transcend these flaws and soar high beyond them, creating even more farms and new insane builds. A new era of the Homies SMP is here, and it's only just getting started. Welcome to a new segment of all my future videos called the Comment of the Day. Every video I will be featuring a comment from one of my lucky subscribers and responding to them in the video. And not only that, but their comment will also be added to a special book of comments on the Homies SMP. Today's comment comes from Spear, who says, "He is back on YouTube." Yes, we are. We're back, and we're coming back better and bigger than ever with even more content for all of you out there every single month. Congrats to Spear for having his comment featured in today's video. And if you want your comment to be featured in my upcoming videos, or just want to support me on my journey to 600 subscribers, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment down below. Thank you all so much for watching today's episode. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button so it gets shared to others just like you out there. And as always, I'm RaiderHater10345, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.